You're listening to Beyond the Measure, episode 42. Listen as I, a young choir director, and my husband, a young composer, interview other music educators in order to gain insight into their own success in the classroom. We have a lot to learn, and we want you to learn with us. No matter your age, ensemble, or experience, this is the ideal podcast for music educators, composers, and students alike. So join us as we go beyond the measure. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode. My name is Kara.
And my name's Christian.
And this is the Beyond the Measure podcast. If this is your first time tuning in, we are a podcast specifically made for music educators. We interview all sorts of veteran music educators across the nation, and we learn all the tips and tricks that they have used in their years of teaching. And I personally try to apply it to my teaching.
That's right, because you are a teacher. How many years have you been teaching, Kara?
This is my fourth year.
Fourth year. And at the time of recording this, it's only been a few weeks, but how's it been going so far?
It's been great, honestly.
Good. Knock on wood.
Yeah, this is like the honeymoon phase still of the school year, but I feel like this is the first year where most of my kids signed up to be in choir because they love singing. And that has changed just the climate of my choir program this year, which has been really encouraging. So
yeah, I was going to say, I think I've definitely seen that from just the way you've been coming home from work. I feel like, even though it's only like, week 3 or 4 at this point, in past years, it would have already been a lot more stressful in that kind of way. So that's great. With that being said, if this is your first time listening, you're hearing us talk about choir. This is not just a choir-centric podcast. We interview music teachers from all across the board, band, choir, orchestra, all those different ones.
Which, speaking of our guests, this is a part 2 episode. So if this is your first time listening, go back to the last one and get all caught up. But speaking of, this is Jay Lester, and he is a predominantly band guy. So just to prove that we do.
Yeah, that's right. In the last episode, Jay actually has a background in administration, fine arts administration. So really great perspectives on that side of things. So you can go back, like Kara said, listen to the first part to get caught up. But in this episode, Jay actually focuses more on the power of traditions and how they play a role in his ensemble, the world-famous Cowboy band at Hardin-Simmons University. So this is a great episode, not just for band, but for any ensemble, and how you can incorporate traditions and things for students to be a part of that really enhance that connection and that sense of family across generations, not just within a group for a single year, but for, literally generations. And you're going to hear about that in the episode today.
Again, thank you guys for listening, and here is part 2 of Jay Lester's interview.
Well, welcome back.
Hey, glad to be back. We're going to take on a different topic, and I'm going to tell you a little bit more about my background. Today we're going to talk about college teaching, and then maybe how to establish tradition and honor tradition in the organization. Served for many years as a public school educator and administrator, and recently retired, and now I'm into full-time college teaching. So my background, I have a bachelor's in music business, but I also finished all the coursework for theory composition and music education and a lot of the performance things. And then I went into conducting, did my master's degree, and then later did a degree in educational administration. And I've since then supplemented, and I have hours from University of Miami, Vandercook College of Music, also a few more hours from Hardin-Simmons. One thing here that I put is that experience counts, whether you're 25 or 50. So the kinds of experiences that you have matter. The organizations that you're involved with, or how you audition, or how you study. So in college teaching, I would say that it probably matters a little bit more. The transcript's important. Most college professors you'll see did not do well in undergrad and did much better as graduate students.
You'd recently come from even though you were in an administrative role, you were in public education. Mm-hmm. Coming from that side of things to higher education, what do you feel like is the biggest difference in how you approach that kind of teaching? And Obviously, the age of the students is very different. There's kind of a generational difference in that kind of way, but also where you're teaching, the setting is very different. For anyone that maybe currently might be teaching in one of those areas that might, one of these days switch to the other, what do you think are the biggest differences there, or biggest similarities?
Well, similarities, students are students.
Right.
And contrary to what you might think and read and hear, they can do great things, and you have to maximize their potential.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you have to be optimistic because everyone has something to offer, and they'll surprise you.
Yeah.
As far as what age level, it's just different. Middle school is different than high school, but they can both be very rewarding, and obviously college is wonderful. The difference is their parents not the one that's getting them to
Right.
class.
Yeah.
Most of the time.
Yeah.
They are the ones that are responsible to get up in the mornings. Fortunately for me, I didn't have too many classes that were any classes earlier than 10:30. So I didn't have any attendance issues
Right.
the last year. But some people do with the 8 o'clock classes.
Oh, yeah.
I think that it's easier to just encourage them to come if you take interest in what they do and them personally. And you follow up.
Mm-hmm.
You say, we really missed you.
Yeah, only good example of that is there'd be times where I think it was my first time I had overslept my 8 a.m. and Dr. Romines was always just so gracious. I think I went up to him and I just apologized profusely of missing, and he's like, "Oh no, it's okay. I'm." And every time if I ever had to miss, he was very personal and made me want to wake up at 8 o'clock to learn about music theory. So
Not to mention that also, I mean, like you just said, I was going to say that the times where it was harder to get yourself to get up and go to class, it was like knowing the professor and knowing that they were invested in my education made me want to work harder to be there for them, and not just for me, but for them, because they're great people.
Absolutely. The things that are involved in college teaching, specifically if you're doing band or choir or orchestra, you've got the same kind of recruiting and retention that you would have as a middle school director or a high school director.
Right.
It's just different in that you're going after people that can choose to go to school at your school or not. And sometimes they don't tell you.
Right.
Sometimes it looks like they're coming and they don't show up. And other times, Dr. Tucker, a good friend of mine, he told me, you're going to get some surprises at the end that will be very nice. And in the last 2 weeks, I've had 3 students come through the door that I'd never heard of, never met. And they said, I'm going to be in the band program. So
Great.
Those surprises are wonderful. And I hope they keep coming.
Well, I can definitely vouch for that. We're working in the admissions office, that side of things. It's been happening across the board, but you're exactly right.
So a little different. You're responsible for your own professional learning. There's not anybody that's kind of saying you have to get so many hours in order to get credit. They're not looking over your shoulder to do that. It's your responsibility. It should be part of your interest to keep learning.
Right.
So when you go to you choose to go to certain conferences, but you want to be there,
right,
and you take interest. Part of the job is networking, and you do that a lot through convention travel, but also through still staying connected with high school and middle school directors in the area, and going to things like UIL and TMEA meetings, contests, and things like that. Even making appearances at football games and doing clinics. Those are so valuable, so important. It's not just to help the programs, but it's also to hopefully build a relationship so students might want to be in the band program if they were to come to your school or choir or whatever you're teaching.
And I feel like from kind of my perspective, I mean, no matter what age level or, whether it's higher education or public education or whatever, I mean, obviously who the person is that is the, director of, blank program is always going to make a difference on the, how students perceive the program and how they, if they want to be a part of it. But I feel like with higher education, there's an even greater importance on that, because in many cases, majority of the students or a good chunk of the students are coming to your school to study music, and who they want to study with, I mean, is going to play a big role in their decision on where they want to go. So your identity as a director is very closely, probably even more closely knit to the identity of the program overall, because it's no longer, not always just students just taking an elective anymore, like in high school, right? It's a lot of them are students that are actually wanting to commit to this full time.
Yeah, we, just in my short time, we've got anywhere from about 2/3 to 3/4 at times of the ensemble we made up of majors.
Right.
And then you have to rely on non-majors. And really, that's the number we need to increase right now, are our non-majors. So we've been working at that. And you pick up some of those surprises here at the end. One thing that helps with recruiting is being able to stay connected to alumni, and not just alumni that but ones you don't know.
Right.
Maybe they're a different generation from yours. This past weekend, I was involved with the program that Dr. Lloyd Hawthorne, who was longtime choir director and dean at Hardin-Simmons, puts together a kind of an alumni group that it has people from his days directing Baptist All-State for high school students. He had some singers from that, many from Hardin-Simmons, majority. And then he actually served interim at ACU and at Baylor. So we had some people from both of those programs. And then people that are just tied to the community that know Lloyd through First Baptist Church or through Hardin-Simmons, that maybe they're professors. They sang and played in the group. That is the best example of generational alumni that get together, and you get to know people from different eras, and it keeps you plugged in. It's energizing to see somebody like Lloyd, who's 83, I think, and he's making connections with people who just graduated from Hardin-Simmons. I have a friend that's up in Lubbock, Keith Bearden. He retired from the Tech Band as director. Gosh, it's probably been 2003, and he stays connected. He knows everyone, and he does the best at that, and I try to model myself after him. Those are my mentors, even though I'm now retired and a little bit older, but I still have mentors. And Dr. Hawthorne is one of them. Keith Bearden's one of them. You just have to keep getting people that you can trust and lean on when you need advice.
And I think from a student's perspective, seeing that connection really is a draw to, I think, most students. And I remember, like, for Kara and I, when we were freshmen at Hardin-Simmons, and one of the things they did, that this was the last time they did it, but they're finally getting ready to do it again this year, which really excited about, is Dr. Hawthorne would conduct during homecoming week an alumni choir alumni concert. And so we got to see, as freshmen in the program, all of these alumni, again, generations, like you said, come back and perform together. And it wasn't just cool to see that happen, but it was even better knowing, wow, like, we are now a part of that. Like, those are our people. Like, it's not just them performing, it's we're all a part of this together. And it just really gives you a larger perspective on the legacy that you've now stepped into when you do that sort of thing.
So staying connected to alumni, very important. You asked me what's the difference? What does the day look like? College teaching versus high school or middle school or something. You have these pockets of free time in the middle of the day, but if you don't maximize and use your time wisely, you're going to really be behind. And sometimes that free time might be open door policy, where you've got office hours, you're trying to work, but students or people come by and they have questions, or they just want to talk. They need counseling, maybe not professional counseling, but they're there to get advice or just to talk. That's your time. And there are days that I go home and I think I did not get a thing accomplished today, but I did, because I got to visit with people.
Yeah.
You just have to look at it differently.
Yeah, that's an investment for sure.
It's an investment in people. And so you're trying to do the right thing by encouraging people and being there when they need you.
Right. And those are the ones that come back, 20, 30, 40 years later for the alumni concerts and things, those kinds of things, because they had that experience and they don't want to they don't want to forget that, and they want to keep being a part of it.
You asked me in one of your emails about how do you establish and how do you honor the tradition in your organization. So, I work at Hardin-Simmons. We have the Cowboy band, we have concert band. And the first thing I did when I came in January, they'd had an interim in the fall, did a great job, but you kind of have to set the tone.
Right.
How do you want it to look in rehearsal? How do you want to treat people? How do you want to be treated? You've got to honor the past while you also have to shape the future. And then how do you deal in the present?
Right.
So those are some things that I had to establish early on. And as a young teacher, I can't say that I was always easygoing. Sometimes I was, but you tend to be more intense, maybe a hothead at times. Mm-hmm. And I decided that I wasn't going to do that this go round, returning to the classroom. And I thought, I'm just going to be as kind as I can all the time. And first day I had somebody walk in late, and everybody kind of looked like, what am I going to do? And I said, is everything okay? And the person said, yeah, I guess. And I think he was expecting to be chewed out because, and I said, well, just try not to be late tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And so, that seems to help. And I decided I'm not going to yell and scream. I've never told anybody to be quiet. They just are quiet. Mm-hmm. And Dr. Tucker walked in one time and he said, did you just chew the band out? Why are they so quiet? I said, no, this is how it is. Just chill. This is how it is. So, you've got to set the tone. When you're rehearsing, you don't want to, you've got to tell a few stories here and there. You've got to balance it. Can't be all rehearsal.
Yeah.
But you can't also just talk the whole period.
Yeah. Let's take a quick break from this episode so that I can tell you about this podcast's primary sponsor, Christian Fortner Music. That's right, my own music business. If you're looking for fresh new music ranging anywhere from middle school choir to college level orchestra, there's a good chance I'll have it. And while I am a young composer, my music library is constantly growing as I write more and more. The way I sell the music is a little different from other music retailers as well, which I think you'll like. Instead of purchasing a minimum number of individual copies or parts, you'll purchase one PDF that includes all parts in it, of which you can print out as many times as you need. That way, you don't have to stress about purchasing a new part that you misplaced or feel the shame of only purchasing 10 copies for your ensemble of 40. Come on, we've all done it before. Now, if you'd like a sample of what my music is like, you can actually receive a completely free piece of music from a certain selection when you sign up for my mailing list. Plus, you'll be a part of other fun perks, such as receiving monthly updates from me and early access to podcast episodes such as this one. If that's something you'd be interested in receiving, you can do so at christianfortnermusic.com/mailings. Just so that our listeners know a little bit more about the Cowboy band, because I'm sure there's some people listening to this on from who knows where that can't even grasp the idea of a cowboy band.
It's world famous.
Yeah, our world famous cowboy band. So can you tell us a little bit about what the Cowboy band is, and then from there, I think it'd be cool if you could tell us a little bit about some of the specific physical traditions that y'all have that y'all like to do each year, and kind of what's tied to the identity of the Cowboy band. Because I think those sorts of things are so important for different sorts of ensembles to really think about, and they don't always have to be super drastic things for traditions, but those are the kinds of things that really create an identity for any sort of group.
Well, the school, like many colleges, had a band program, and it kind of wavered back and forth. As far as some years they had numbers, some years they had a student conductor, and they directed and it was a hodgepodge of instruments. Right. And we're talking about the research I've done. Looks like there might have been a band as early as 1905, but in 1923, the band director had left. And the president and the dean, who was kind of like the provost now, got together and called in the violin teacher who was doing the orchestra and said, "You're going to be the band director." And this gentleman's name was D.O. Wiley, and he ended up being president of TMEA. He ended up being the first executive secretary for TMEA. A lot of people don't know that. So there's a lot of history tied to the school.
Yeah, that's huge.
And when he left Hardin-Simmons after being the band director for 13 years, he went up to Texas Tech and helped rejuvenate their band program.
Wow.
And he earned the title Father of Texas Bands because he had so many graduates out of the two schools that ended up being band directors.
It's incredible.
Yeah, and he's just the beginning of the story.
I was about to say, that's just the beginning.
So he's one of the things he did was he made them world famous by taking them to Europe. And they stayed for, I think, 5 or 6 weeks touring Europe. So that's where the world famous started. He didn't know what he was going to do. So he said no at first. And then they said, well, what will it take? He goes, if you give me the ability to give a scholarship to any one good player. And they said, okay. Anyway, he had to come up with a uniform. And so he thought, since we're the Simmons College, they were the Cowboys. And so he went down to the Western store and got a Western shirt, had everybody buy some jeans, and they already had boots. And he bought some chaps and had them made where it said Simmons College, and bought a 10-gallon Stetson hat and a neckerchief. And we still wear that same type of uniform today. And it stuck. At that time, it was inexpensive, but now those chaps, boy, they cost a lot of money.
Yeah.
Oh, you were talking about hundreds of dollars to buy those because they're made of leather and they're specialized, and they've got all these, rivets and things in them. They're beautiful. So some of those traditions started way back then and continued. You mentioned world famous. That was the first trip, but we've been to 17 different countries, 40 different states. Performed for 6 different presidents in their inaugurations. I think 11 governors of Texas. Been to Macy's Parade, Mardi Gras, Carnival in Nice 3 times, London New Year's Day Parade, toured Spain. 2 years ago, the band went to Ireland and did the St. Patrick's Day Parade in Dublin.
That was awesome.
When you get there, you kind of learn who all's there, and it's big players. So we're talking about, University of North Texas, Illinois, University of Illinois. The Wiley band that's over by Plano was there. But that was it. There were like 4 or 5 bands, and that was it in the parade, and that's on a international stage. So those kind of trips matter.
I feel like I remember some specific stories that the Irish really liked the Cowboy band in the parade.
We don't go anywhere where we're not a big hit.
Yeah.
The band's never been bigger than about 40, but it's unique. Our spirit and our flair for what we do. The band marches to, some of the times, a fast shuffle step of about 200 beats per minute. And then at times we break into a regular stride. And then they came up with this thing back in the 30s called the cow step. And it's kind of where you lift your leg up high and left over right, and the chaps go flying. And it's just interesting. Hard to explain.
Yeah, very.
Just got to see it.
That's right. It's not your typical marching band show that people are used to. That's for sure.
But I was down in Victoria about 15 years ago, working down there, and one of the programs just outside of our city was known as the Edna Cowboys. And I went and watched their halftime, and they were dressed exactly like Hardin-Simmons.
Really? Wow.
Well, then I remembered, I went back to my history book, and the band toured down there and went and played in Edna.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Just prior to them starting their band program, and they modeled their uniform after.
Wow.
That's sweet.
That's so interesting. I had no idea.
Nobody knows that.
Yeah. You'll need to try to find one of their original uniforms or something. I feel like that'd be a unique. Is that like officially verified, or is that just?
No, I saw it. It's on the wall there in their band hall.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be cool to get.
They were wearing it at contests still.
Yeah. Wow.
And just recently it switched away from it.
Could you tell us about, and again, for those that are listening, y'all have no idea like how many different specific kinds of traditions that the Cowboy Band does, and some that I know about, and I'm sure there are some I don't know about. That's just for those in the band. But could you tell them about the kind of when there are new students coming in as freshmen and y'all are kind of inaugurating them into the group. And one of the biggest traditions that y'all are known for is what y'all refer to each other as, the nicknames that y'all give. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
You know what they say about traditions? You do it twice and it's a tradition.
Yeah.
So it's interesting because I was here and I've been involved with the band foundation. The band foundation that we have is a 501c3. It's kind of like our booster club for adults. So they raise money so that they can help with things. So I've been involved with that. So I've seen the group. But coming back, they tell me some of these traditions they have, and they don't resemble anything like what we used to do. Not at all. They've made up some new things. Traditions morph over time. Some of them really matter, and some of them are just extra and fluff. And it's just whatever they dreamed up at that minute. Yeah. And they did it twice, and now all of a sudden it's what we do. So those kind of traditions, we play certain songs that have a Western flair to them, and we need to stick with that because that's what makes us unique. The hat, the signals, the way we do things, the orientation that you were referring to, there were just some things that they did for 30, 40 years. Late 60s, early 70s, they came up and started calling them slime. The freshmen were known as that. I know in A&M they do some of that too. They call them that. But they had a more organized program, and they got in a little bit of trouble for hazing and things, like all good character building. And some of it was good. Most of it maybe was done the wrong way. But we've tried to keep the positive side of the program. During our orientation period of 5 or 6 weeks, we'll have them do one night we talk about pride in the group and history and things like that. We quiz them on some of the history over the whole program. There's a nickname night where they come up with a nickname for each person. That's what I was referring
to, yeah.
Yeah, so that's I think there's a trust fall night, which is funny because I've seen some videos lately where somebody said, "You just got to trust us, fall." And they were at a church and they fall forward instead of backwards.
There you go.
And then there's one night where they decorate the display cases, and they have a theme for that. So those are all the kinds of things that they do as part of the program. But the main thing is that they're instilling a sense of brotherhood, sisterhood, and tradition in the group. So it's not just a regular group. They're tied, helps tie them in, and that's the goal.
So what do you, if there are some traditions that maybe you kind of want to glean away from, how do you change tradition or?
Well, that's a great question. This is my advice to anybody coming into a new organization. Take time to assess what you've got and then figure out what's important. And then you slowly just make slight changes to reflect the way you want it and set the tone. That goes back again. This is what we're going to do. You tell them what you're going to do, not what you're not going to do.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep.
So you model the behavior. You talk about tomorrow a lot. There's some things that I didn't make many changes this semester, but we're going to have a few changes in the fall. And some things have popped up over the last 20 years that just don't belong. I'm like, why do we have all these birds here? And they don't even know. And so somebody found some years ago, and now they're stuck in there. And, I picked up one of them, and it had writing on the bottom of it. It was 15 years ago. Wow. It meant nothing to anybody.
Yeah.
But I'm like, we're getting rid of this stuff. What we're going to focus on is the music, the history, the tradition, the spirit. It's not about the gimmicks or the comedy or anything like that. That's where we may have gone astray a little bit in the past, and we're going to try to get it back on course.
I've heard Craig Groeschel say this. He's a leader that he has like a podcast and pretty well known on social media for a lot of leadership talks. But I've heard him say one time that you hear people say all the time, "Oh, people don't like change. People don't like change." Well, really, it's like people don't mind change. They don't like how they are told to change. And I feel like that's a great example of how it's hard to change things when it's just, all right, we're doing this. it's better to, like you said, assess and really get a clearer picture and make it a slower transition, just not an immediate thing.
You have to have buy-in.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
If you don't, if you don't have respect, you're not going to be able to get change to take place. So you got to have respect for them, respect for you, and mainly the program and the direction. You know, I tell the students all the time, my job is to set the direction, set the tone, concerts, planning, events, logistics. Your job is to have a good time, learn your music, do the social things that make it fun. Yeah. And so the other day I met with one of the students, and we talked about, I want a social event every month. And they're like, oh, well, they were close to doing that. They just didn't realize it. So pizza night, a movie night, a Christmas party, things like that. Social events are so important to the health of the group. Many teachers really don't like doing them, but they're essential.
And it's crazy how we've talked about this with a lot of teachers, how it doesn't matter the age, like from elementary, middle school, all the way up through college and professional. Those things are important. That's
what they remember the most. They remember how they felt. And
I think I wrote that down even. They're going to remember how they felt in the organization, and were they treated right? Were they respected? What were their feelings when they did something big? Did you chew them out or did you praise them? What was the audience reaction? And one thing I wrote down was what will be written and said about this group, not the one from 10 years ago.
Yeah. Right
now. That's what's important.
I've even felt that from I'm not even I'm just using Hardin-Simmons as an example. We graduated 3 years ago, and I've been working at Hardin-Simmons since, right after I graduated. So it's been 3 years, and I've, even though I haven't been directly in the classroom, I've been able to see the new music students that have come in and the new generation of music students. And, I just happen to know a lot of them because I helped, recruit them, but I don't necessarily know them in the same way that I did my classmates when I was a student. And I can see changes that have happened, and I'm not saying it's not better or worse. It's just different. And that's something that comes with new people and a new culture every few years. And that's a really beautiful thing to have that change in dynamic over time.
One thing that being around a lot of the alumni this weekend and being around alumni in the past is people like to get together and talk about their time.
Yeah.
And their time is always bigger, better, faster, louder.
Yeah.
All those kind of things. And so you have to, it takes perspective, and they have to realize that what we're doing now is just as important and meaningful, just different set of people. We talked about some long-term, short-term planning in our last session. So you've got to have some kind of trips or carrots or something that you're working toward. And we're making some changes right now for this coming fall. Continue being present we're going to take a trip to London in December and January. But before that, we got invited to perform at the state marching contest.
Great.
Oh, wow.
And we're going to perform at one of the region marching contests to get ready for it.
Cool.
And, tying in alumni, we're still having to use a few people that come back and help us out. And I think that's important for young students to see that people still love the organization and will come back and help out.
I forgot to mention I think that's a really unique thing is y'all quite frequently have alumni come back and be a part of performances, not just like a single annual alumni thing like we were talking about with the choir, but like on a regular basis, a lot of y'all's larger events that y'all do throughout the year.
Yeah, it's one of the things that makes it unique. You don't see that everywhere.
Right.
Some places will do one alumni event a year. We do try to fill out sections as we need them, or just if people want to join in, we're perfectly fine with that.
Yeah. Real quick, what's the date of the state marching contest this year? When is?
It's in November. You put me on the spot.
Yeah, sorry.
I think we're performing on the 12th. We're going to do October 21st here in Abilene. We're doing the 12th of November. That's in San Antonio. And we're performing after the 2A prelims.
Perfect.
And so they have other university groups will be there. They'll probably invite 4 or 5 throughout those 2 weeks. Okay. And they perform at different times for the crowd. At first I thought, what are we going to do? And then it occurred to me, we're going to do what we do, and we're going to do it best.
That's right.
And my goal is that hopefully some students and parents see us and they think, That's different.
Yeah.
I want to do that.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I asked you, if anyone's listening that's going to be at the state marching contest, keep an eye out.
And we'll do the New Year's Day parade in London. When I first signed up for that, I thought, yeah, I'll just sign up for it and see if we get it. We got it. Got the invitation. And then I get over there and I realize this is a lot bigger deal. I had no idea it was this big of a deal.
Wow.
It's like it's the biggest parade in England.
Wow.
And one of the biggest ones in Europe.
That's awesome.
It's televised all over Europe.
Wow.
And this year coming up, it's on PBS.
Oh,
Wow.
really?
So everybody will see it in America.
Tune in, everybody. Tune in.
That's exciting.
On New Year's Day, and it starts at noon, I believe, over there. So it's like 7 a.m., but like you can stream it and watch it throughout. So it's just, isn't that insane?
That's incredible. That's incredible.
And then I realized when I get to the meeting this summer, I went to a meeting over there, and I thought, well, it's just one of those things where we go for 30 minutes and then we'll have the rest of the week. They had us in meetings all week. And we did all kinds of work. I mean, it was preview and taking notes and
really
taking pictures, where we're going to go, the venues. So the band will perform, concert band will perform one concert and these are churches. One of them still is an active church. The other is just a venue now. And Cowboy band will do a concert, and then we do the parade with Cowboy band. And that'll be on the 1st. It's a 2.1 mile parade, and it ends at Big Ben and Parliament.
That's
and
awesome.
There's 750,000 people on site.
Wow.
On site. Not
And
including watching online, just on site.
On television, they said it would be about 400 million.
No pressure.
So no pressure. So that kind of exposure should reward us with some recruiting in the future.
And do y'all typically also do, just for a more local example, y'all usually do the Christmas parade in Dallas each year. Is that right?
So this fall we'll do the West Texas Fair Parade. We'll do the Abilene Christmas Lights Parade. And then we go to Ranger and do their Christmas parade, and Dallas and do their Christmas parade, all in that first semester. And then a couple weeks after that, we leave for London and do the one there and a couple of concerts. And we will probably do one more in the spring in February at the Fort Worth Stock Show Parade.
Well, I was just thinking, there's a few HSU Cowboy Band Fine Arts Facebook groups that we're in, and I saw that you had shared a video of, I think it was when y'all had marched in that parade, was like 2003 or
no, that was that video's from 1990.
Oh, okay, 1990, so even older. And I was watching it, and I'm like, it looks exactly the same, and in a good way. I mean, except
for the Ninja Turtles.
Well, right.
We were the
I don't know where that came from.
So we were the featured group, and we were there to back up the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And if you look in the video, there were two. I'm like, well, where was the third one? And then somebody reminded me, it came out of the box or whatever, and she broke her leg.
Oh no!
Right there. So they only had two dancing with us, and we played their little theme song. But that trip was terrific. That was the first time we'd ever done that parade. Okay. It was when that parade was first starting, and huge, big deal. Back then, the parade's changed names, a dozen times, but it was the Adolphus Christmas or Children's Christmas Parade, and at Children's Hospital is who it was helping. They put us up in the Adolphus that year. It's a nice 5-star hotel in downtown Dallas, and we had a lot of alumni that came and joined us for that.
Well, I just want to bring that up because it was just a great example of going back to tradition. I mean, the identity has been kept, consistent throughout all the years. And like you said, things change over time. But at the end of the day, that core identity and camaraderie is still there, and I think that was just very obvious from what I saw. And I mean, Kara and I, neither of us, we were not in Cowboy Band, we were in choir, but even just being close to y'all, we could just so easily see the brotherhood, like you said, and it's not just guys, it's guys and girls, but very close-knit group, and you can easily see that from the outside. And so our hope is that anyone listening, that hey, if you have any students that want to do band in college, come look up the Cowboy Band, which brings us to our last thing. If there's anyone that is interested in the Cowboy Band, learning more, if they have any students or children that are, this might sound like a good fit for them. I mean, what's a good way that they can connect with you and with the band?
Probably the best way is, Google research. You can see a lot of video with past directors, and we have a lot of presence on YouTube and on Facebook. And but you can get a hold of me at jay.lester@hsutx.edu, or you can research, just get online for the school. We have a new College of Arts and Media that just started this fall, and it's kind of bringing back some things that were in the past. And we just hit another enrollment mark today that's showing exponential percentages and growth over last year and the year before. And it's exciting to be a part of this. It's exciting to be here at this time. In fact, I enrolled another student today, and another French horn.
Great.
So we need every instrument, so come join us. We have scholarships.
That's right. Y'all definitely have scholarships, and again, I can attest to that. It's there's a lot of growth happening, and I can see that from the inside, and it's an exciting time to be a musician at Hardin-Simmons. So shameless plug there. If anyone's interested, we'd love to hear from you. But well, Jay, this has been a great conversation. Thank you so much for being here today and bringing all these different perspectives to our listeners. Anything else you want to share before you wrap up, or do you think that's a good place to wind up?
This has been fun. We're a very inclusive group, and we would love to have you. So if you're interested, or if you're just interested in being a fan, please check us out.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Jay. We appreciate it. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of Beyond the Measure, a podcast for music educators. We hope you learned something that will help you stress less about how to teach so that you can focus more on who you're teaching. If you enjoyed the episode, please leave us a rating and review, subscribe, and share this podcast with other music educators. See you in the next one.